Hi guys, it's Karen, also known as Not Fancy Knitter. I'm coming to you from Chicago, where I live with my husband, our 3 kids, and our 2 dogs, Max and Alonzo. This is a knitting podcast where I talk about all the things I'm working on, things I want to be working on, and things I probably should be working on, but let's be honest, I'm not gonna. You can find me on all kinds of social media, on Instagram and TikTok as Not Fancy Knitter, and or you can email me at ayarntail@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. So hope you guys are doing well. It's been a little over 2 weeks. I was going to try to podcast before the weekend, but then I had some sick kids and more tragically, a sick nanny. I have a really awesome nanny that allows our life to function in a way that is manageable, and she wasn't feeling well, nothing serious, but that means I was a one-woman show here for a while, and it was bad. So no podcasting, but it's good to be back. I'm trying a little bit of a different camera angle today. I know people have been saying since pretty much the podcast started a year ago or 2 years ago, or however long I've been doing this, that I'm not looking in the right place. And I think it's just because I record with my phone and it is impossible for me to focus on the little light instead of looking at the camera screen, the phone screen. So I'm just my focus is always in the wrong spot. So I flipped my camera around in a last ditch effort to give me nothing to look at. So hopefully I can pay attention to the place that I'm supposed to be looking instead of randomly watching my knits in the screen. So if it's better, let me know. If it's worse, let me know. One of these days should probably just buy a real camera, but I don't know, it seems complicated. So I'm hoping this works out. Hang on, I'm gonna close the door. Okay, sorry, my heat just kicked on and it's super loud. Fun fact, so my maintenance guy for our heater came out a couple days ago just for routine maintenance, and he was like, you know, it seems really dry in here in your house. And I was like, yes, it's Chicago in February. It's super dry. There's no moisture to be had anywhere. And he said he could put in a humidifier, which I thought would be great because some of the new woodwork that we had done in our living room is sort of pulling apart in a way that is, I'm assuming, pretty bad. So I was like, yeah, could you put a humidifier on the furnace that heats the living room? Because then maybe it wouldn't be so dry in there. And so he's like, yeah, sure. But then my nanny was sick. So instead of being home to let him in and show him around, when he came back to install the humidifier, I was actually dropping my kids off at school, and I was like, don't worry about it. We have a key and a lockbox outside, and I'm like, you can just use the key to let yourself in and, you know, get to work, and I'll be back in a few hours. Because it takes a while, just takes a while to do the morning rundown with my kids. So I get back, and sadly, he installed the humidifier on the wrong furnace. We have this tiny little other furnace that heats just this small area of our upstairs, and he, for reasons unknown, installed the humidifier on that one, which, I mean, okay, I'm sure my 2nd grader will really appreciate the added humidity, but now we have to get a second humidifier for the actual HVAC unit that I wanted to. So this is neither here nor there. This is not an HVAC humidity podcast. But all that to say that it's been pretty busy here in ways that are not at all interesting. But let's get down to it and talk about some knitting. So I have a ton of stuff to share, and I'm really excited. I have 2.5 finished objects. Super exciting. So let's get into it. My first finished object is this one. Okay, so again, I can't see myself, so hopefully it looks good. But this is the classic ribbed hat by Purl Soho. I have knit this pattern before. I actually knit it out of the exact same yarn, just in a different color. This is Knit Picks Swish DK in the colorway Green Tea Heather, I believe. And I had knit it previously in a lavender color of Swish DK that, can't remember, it's something Heather. And it worked out really well. I lost that purple hat really recently, so I'm glad that I finished this one because this is my best fitting hat. It's just all that 1x1 ribbing really makes it sort of impossible to get the fit wrong. It is a free pattern, so I can go ahead and talk about it in some detail, but I knit the adult medium size, so I cast on 108 stitches and just knit 1x1 rib all the way around forever. I modified it a little because I knit a double thick brim, so when I like a pretty thick brim, so I knit this giant brim, and then when I got to the length that I wanted it to be, I knit double that, folded it over, and knit two together with the cast on row so that it's permanently knit down. It's like double thick all the time. And then when you fold it up to, you know, cover the hat, it's triple thick, which, you know, it's Chicago in February and it is super chilly here and really windy. So the triple thick on your ears is essential. I don't think it looks that impressive because it's literally just like a 1x1 rib hat all the way around, but it is super cozy and warm. I knit it a little bit too long. Like if I wear it, like it really wants to sit down real low like that. I feel like, who's that guy from Fat Albert that like put his hat down way super low? I feel like that guy. So I think I just wasn't paying attention. I didn't measure it or anything. I just knit to how long I thought it would be. And it's a little bit long, but I'm not mad at it. And I think if I put it in the dryer, it would just snap back and fix itself. But have I done that? No, I haven't. Have I woven in the ends? No, I haven't. And I've been wearing it almost every day with these giant ends straggling out. I try to like stuff them in the hat, but I'm pretty sure they're hanging down below the brim. But you know, who's looking? If you're close enough to see the ends dangling on my hat, it's too close. It's too close. So I knit this hat. This is my first project where I knit continental from start to finish. I learned how to knit from YouTube at the end of 2019. And the random video that I clicked on showed an English style throwing technique where you hold the working yarn in your right hand and wrap it around the needle. And so that's the way that I learned how to knit, and I didn't even know there was another way to do it, or multiple ways to do it, until much later. And so pretty much from the moment that I learned that there was another way to do it, I was instantly filled with regret that I picked the wrong way. Because continental just looked way more efficient and faster, and like those continental knitters kind of have an attitude and they seemed cool and kind of scary, and I wanted to be them. But I've tried many times to switch over and it just was so awkward. Like it was way slower than I could have knit English style, that I just wasn't willing to sort of take the hit to fully switch. The only thing that made me do it finally in the end was I knit a couple of colorwork projects, and specifically the spot sweater by Ventzel. Hang on, I think I have it here. Do I? I do. Okay. Why is it up here? That's an excellent question. Okay, so I knit the spot sweater by Ventzel, which is an all-over colorwork sweater. And when I knit colorwork, I hold the main color in my right hand and I sort of throw with that hand, and then I hold the contrast color in my left hand and knit continental style with that color. So by the end of the all-over sweater, I was pretty comfortable knitting both ways. I mean, it started out really awkward, but by the end of a full adult size sweater, it was not that bad. And so I was like, all right, I think I can do it. And particularly for 1x1 rib, continental style is just way easier, because with English style, you know, you're always like, bring the yarn to the front, bring the yarn to the back, and it's just really slow and tedious. I mean, it's still slow and tedious even with continental, because I'm a pretty slow knitter. However, I'm pretty pleased with how it came out. It is, like, my stitches are a little janky. They're definitely uneven. I'm trying to be kind to myself, you know, because it is sort of a new style for me. I mean, if I knit this English style, it would just look a lot tidier and neater. And I'm a much looser knitter when I knit holding the yarn in my left hand. So I don't know if that'll eventually tighten up or if I'm just gonna be a loose knitter forever now. But if you look, like, look at those stretched out stitches down toward the fold over of the brim. I mean, that just looks, that is not good. But I think if I blocked it, maybe it would improve. I mean, like I said, I haven't blocked it and I've been wearing it, so I guess it doesn't bother me that much. But this is my first continental project, so hooray for me. So that's finished object number 1, and you guys, it continues. There are more. Okay, so I finished my bloom vest sweater. Which one's the front? Which one's the front? This one, okay. There's a bunch of short rows, you'd think I'd know. I think I'm gonna put this on so you can get a better look. Hang on. Okay, here is my bloom vest by Camilla Vad. Here, I have the pattern here so I can show you what it's supposed to look like. Hopefully you can see that. If not, I'll put a photo. Let's just do it that way. I'll put a photo next to the, okay. So here is the bloom vest by Camilla Vad. I finished the knitting, but I have not blocked or woven in the ends yet. So it's like kind of finished, but let me stand up so you can get a better look at it. I love the way it turned out. I'm gonna sit down so I can talk about it without my head being out of the screen, but this is a sweater that was originally designed to be a vest. So I added the sleeves myself. It's knit from the bottom up, and it's knit with 3 yarns. Well, I guess 2, but with different colors. It's knit with a.k.a. Eco Baby, which is a blend. It is 68% baby alpaca and 32% organic cotton. It's 350 meters for 50 grams. Super soft and squishy. It is like the softest, loveliest, looks like a chainette. I'm not that good with my yarn characteristics, but it looks like a chainette construction to me. It's really soft. And then you hold that together with 3 strands of mohair. So 3 strands of mohair and another yarn for a full adult size sweater is pretty pricey for me. So I bought some undyed mohair from Wool to Dye For, which is a dyer supplier that I used when I was dyeing yarn. And I bought undyed mohair. It comes in these, hang on, I'll show you how, here it is. Okay, I bought a 10 pack and it comes in these 50 gram hanks. And then you can just, you know, you can dye it, you can do whatever you need to do with it. I wound up some of it into cakes because the way that the fade goes, you start out with 3 strands of dyed mohair. Like, what happened to this one? Okay. You start out with 3 strands of the dyed mohair held with 1 strand of the Eco Baby. And then as you knit up the body of the sweater, you swap out 1, then 2 strands of the colored mohair for a natural. So it lightens up as you go, and the pattern gives you, you know, sort of the fade sequence so that it will, you know, so it looks intentional. And I tried to replicate the fade pattern on the sleeves. I knit the sleeves from the top down, so I swapped out, I reversed the fade pattern, and I think it turned out pretty well. I mean, it's not exact, but it does match up pretty well. I have never tried to add sleeves or design sleeves, and you can a little bit tell. There's a lot of extra fabric under the arms. The vest itself has some ribbing. You pick up along the sleeve edge, and then you knit a couple of inches of ribbing at the top. I don't know if you can see that. It's really hard because you can't see I can't see what I'm looking at because my camera's reversed, but if it doesn't work out, I'll swap in a photo so that you get a good idea. But I picked up the stitches as if I were going to knit that ribbing, and then I just knit the sleeves down with a basic decrease pattern. And I think there were just too many stitches for the sleeve. Like the armhole depth is really deep. So it just made a lot of extra fabric here. I mean, it's a pretty oversized sweater. It is cropped. These are high-waisted pants, but it is pretty cropped. But otherwise it's pretty oversized, so it doesn't bother me too much. But if I were designing a sweater from scratch, I would definitely want to address that because that is a lot. That is definitely a lot. So I am really pleased with how it turned out. Things to think about. It was really hard to match up one sleeve to the other, even though I took copious notes on my pattern, like to try to decipher what I had done was really tricky. And I even put in stitch markers along so that I could tell when I started the fade pattern and when I finished the fade pattern. And even that, I mean, I didn't even leave it for that long between the first sleeve and the second sleeve, and it was truly like, I had no idea what I was doing, but I don't think it looks bad. I decreased all the way down, and then when I got to the end, I replicated, there's a purl row, kind of a purl bump row that's on the hem, and I replicated that on the sleeve and did kind of the same length for the cuff. It's a pretty thick band of ribbing at the bottom, and I like that look. So I rapidly decreased, I like knit two together all the way around, and then just knit that thick cuff. And if I'm being honest, I could have knit them maybe like an inch, a half an inch or an inch longer, because I have super long, like go-go gadget arms. So I don't know. When I block it, I'm gonna try to encourage it to be a little longer in the sleeve. I don't hate it. It's just a little bit short. It's a little bit bracelet length, and like, I don't really want that. Why didn't I knit it longer? I don't know. I tried it on and it seemed normal, but you know what it is? When I had only one sleeve, there was no weight on this side, so I think the whole thing kind of listed over to the side. And when you do that, the cuff is the perfect length. And then when I knit both sleeves, it kind of recentered in the shoulders, and they were both a little bit short. Like, oops. So, you know, live and learn. I will definitely, one of these days I should just measure my preferred sleeve length, because then it would take the guesswork out of that, but that would be too easy. Okay, so this is the bloom vest. The original pattern shows this circular embroidery motif on the front, and Camilla, the designer, gives you instructions for how to do that. It's basically just weaving in various types of yarn or embroidery floss in between the knit stitches to make these circles. And I can't decide if I want to do that or not. I probably am going to try it, because if I don't like it, I can just take it out. I mean, it's just like weaving it in and out, so it would be easy enough to take out. I haven't done it yet, because like I said, I haven't even blocked it, and I don't know. I kind of like the way it looks now. So maybe I'll wear it like this for a bit and then give it a try a little later on. That's the bloom vest. And you guys, there's even more finished objects. Well, there's a half a finished object, but I'm super excited. Okay, don't laugh. So I bought these cheapo slippers from Target. They're like made out of yarn. I think they were $9.99. I'm not even gonna show them, because they're super dirty, and now they have a giant hole in the sole, and they're definitely not worth repairing because they are garbage. So I thought to myself, like, instead of spending $10 and buying yet another pair of cheapo slippers from Target, or, I mean, I should just bite the bullet and get really nice slippers with like soles on them. But I mean, they're slippers. Like, do I really want to spend 50 bucks on slippers? I don't. I do not want to do that. So in true DIY form, I was like, I could totally make slippers. Why don't I do that? So I then went down the rabbit hole on Ravelry of felted slippers. And you guys, this rabbit hole is deep and wide. There are so many felted slippers out there. I had no idea. So I settled on, what is it even called? Hang on, I'm gonna write it on a look, because I'm gonna get it wrong. It's called The Family of Slippers by Chris de Longpré of Knitting at Knoon. And that's knitting at Knoon, Knoon, like very clever. And so I'll put in a picture of it here, but it's basically a pattern to knit these giant, I mean, they're enormous. I did one. Enormous worsted weight, held double kind of socks. I mean, don't laugh at my color, like whatever. And then you put them in the washer and dryer. I gotta read the directions. You put them in a mesh bag and put them in the washing machine and felt them, which I cannot imagine that this is gonna turn into anything that will fit my foot. This is like the Jolly Green Giants socks. It's like Ronald McDonald's. Ronald McDonald's house slippers are gonna turn into really nice felted slippers for me. I don't know if that's the case. I knit one. I knit this in a single day. It is the fastest, most gratifying project you've ever had because you knit this tiny little cuff. It's a free pattern, so we could talk about it. But you just knit 12 rows. I held worsted weight yarn double. So I have these 2 skeins of worsted weight non-superwash yarn that I dyed myself when I was just learning how to dye, which is still happening. I'm still learning how to dye. But this was like one of my first attempts. And I knit, I dyed up this color, which I think was just a leftover of what was in the dye pot. It's like, it's gonna look kind of off-white on screen, but it is kind of a minty, really light green. Like nice, but kind of boring. And then I have this skein, which is kind of a darker, what am I trying to say? It's kind of like a pine color. And this is just Knit Picks Wool of the Andes, non-superwash. And I had 2 skeins of it. And you need, so the pattern says you need, what do you need? 800, no wait, the pattern says, okay. The pattern says I would need basically a skein and a half to 2 skeins of yarn for for a single pair of slippers, for 2 slippers. And that's if I'm holding the yarn double. So I did hold the yarn double because I wanted to be super dense when it felts up. And I just thought if I did a single strand of worsted weight, it would be too thin. So it is super dense. I mean, this is basically a bulky weight. I don't know, worsted plus worsted equals enormous. Worsted plus worsted is like a bulky weight, I think. It's pretty bulky. And you knit this little cuff of 12 rows, and then right away you're into the heel flap. Now, I knit the heel flap all in the lighter green color, which I now, of course, totally regret. I was worried I would run out of the darker green color. So I was like, well, I used the dark green for the cuff. I gotta use the light green somewhere to sort of even it out. But it just looks kind of like that is very much homemade. And like not really in the best way. But they're house slippers, right? And let's be honest, when I go to felt these, it might be a complete and utter fail. So I'm sort of viewing this as my prototype. And if I like the way it's going, I would definitely make them again. Like I'm gonna put a picture up of this lovely natural colored pair that is just like really nice and almost, dare I say, sophisticated. And I love the look of that, but much different than like, you know, Buddy the Elf's house slippers that I've got going on here, but whatever, it's a good try. So you're right into the heel flap, and then before you know it, you're doing the gusset. The foot, I have size 5 feet, so they're like little elf feet, and the actual just straight foot of the sock was like very short. I mean, maybe just a couple of inches. So it didn't take very long at all, and then you're into the toe decreases. I think I might have messed up my Kitchener stitch. I did look it up, but it looks a little janky there, but I figure all of my mistakes and mishaps will just all be cured with the felting, right? It's all gonna get fixed. It's like how people say like, oh, you can fix that when you block it. I feel like that's that on steroids when you say, I'm gonna felt it. Like who even cares, right? It looks weird on the bottom. Like you can see the jog where I had my stripes come together. But who's gonna notice that when you're felting it? And you're stepping on it. And they're house slippers. So, you know, I hope to cast on the second one today. Like I said, this only took me 1 day, and I didn't even start in the morning. I think I started after lunch. It is, and I am the slow knitter. So I would highly recommend it, assuming that these felt down to a normal size. I don't know. I'll keep you posted. So that is my last and final half finished object. Okay, so let's get into works in progress. I have a couple of works in progress and some future knitting. So my last video, I talked about which sweaters that I was considering to knit a sweater for my husband. And I went ahead and cast on the PetiteKnit Hanstholm sweater. And I got decently far in that. This is a top-down raglan pullover designed by PetiteKnit. I've knit a bunch of her sweaters before, and that's kind of just why I went with it, because I'm pretty familiar with her style of pattern writing, and I like it. This sweater, like I mentioned in my video, it does have a rollover collar that I omitted. So the pattern indicates that you're supposed to knit kind of a double collar and then knit it together. Actually, really similarly to how I did for my Purl Soho hat, you're supposed to do that for the collar. So it would look, it looked like this as the collar of a sweater. And I just thought that would be too bulky for my husband. Like, he's not gonna like that. So I just split the ribbing in half. So if it said to knit 4 inches, I just knit 2, or I forget how much it said to knit. But whatever it is, I cut it in half and just knit, cast on, long tail cast on, and knit my 1x1 rib. And then it goes right into short rows, and there's short rows in the back and a little bit of short rowing in the front, which I thought was kind of weird, but like, cool. And then we're just kind of plugging away. I will say it is way, way slower because it's just a bigger size. I mean, if you're knitting a pullover for an adult man, it's just gonna take longer than it does to knit a sweater for my kids or a sweater even for me. But so far so good. I am knitting it out of Rowan Felted Tweed in the colorway Treacle. It's this dark brown color with tweedy flecks of blue and sort of a lighter brown and rust colors in there. I think it looks really pretty, the color. I don't know if you could see on camera, but it is really, like, there's a lot of texture there, which I like. It is a thin fabric. Like I said, I was getting 19 stitches to the inch, which is technically a worsted gauge. But given that it's gonna be kind of a larger sweater, I think it'll be nice because it's not gonna be that heavy despite having all that fabric. So I'm hopeful. I mean, you can see through it if you're just looking at it like this, but when you're wearing it on your body, like, nothing shows through. I've held it up to all manner of different materials, and even on, I have a white table here, like, you cannot see it. So I think it's gonna be good. I'm almost done with my first round of raglan increases, or the first, you do like a raglan sequence, and then at some point, I only read the pattern once, so I don't really remember, but at some point, the rate of raglan increases changes, and I'm almost at that point of the change. So I'm not done with the raglan increases by any means, but I'm definitely coming to a change where I'd have to look at the pattern again. So far so good. I'm also knitting this pullover continentally, and it is super therapeutic because it is just stockinette, with the exception of the raglan increases. But all in all, like, it's pretty easy going. I will say, for those of you that are continental knitters, do you do all of your stitches holding the yarn in your left hand? Like, I'm definitely good with stockinette and even knit one, purl one, or any kind of ribbing sequence. But sometimes when I do my make one left or make one right, I can't get the working yarn tension tight enough to, like, really get in there for those more complicated stitches. So I find myself switching over to throwing just for that single stitch. Like, if I do something tricky, and especially if I had some kind of purling through the back loop or some kind of, you know, Stephen West type monstrosity of a stitch pattern, I don't know if I could make that happen with my left hand. I don't know. Let me know how you do it. I'm curious. So this is the Hanstholm sweater. So far, so good. He has no idea that I'm working on this. It's not really a surprise. I just, like, I don't want to get anyone's hopes up and then have me finish it like 8 months from now and have everyone in my family be like, where's that sweater? How come you didn't finish my sweater yet? So we're just going to sort of fly under the radar on this one until I get to a decently far along place. In fact, before I split for sleeves, I will likely have him try it on for fit. And so I guess at that point I do have to tell him. I don't know how I could possibly have him try it on without him knowing. But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So that's the Hanstholm. Okay, next, work in progress. Oh, this is super exciting. Okay, so I don't know if you remember, but a long time ago, like several months ago, I bought the pattern for the dot sweater by Knitting for Olive. Again, I'll put a photo, I'll insert a photo so that you can see a little bit better than this janky pattern picture. But it is a all over colorwork pullover sweater that's knit top down with raglan increases. And I'm knitting it for my youngest daughter, who is 6, but she is a really tiny 6. So I'm knitting the size 8 only because I think it would break my heart to knit a sweater that then ended up being too small for her by next winter, which is likely when I'll finish it and she'll be able to wear it. So I'm gonna knit the size 8 and then sort of go from there. And if it's really enormous, I can always give it to my older daughter, who is currently 8. So, you know, it's all part of the plan. I am knitting it out of 2 yarns. So the original, hang on, I'm just looking at this now. The original sweater is knit out of the main color is an alpaca held with a strand of mohair, and the contrast colors are some kind of merino. So of course I don't have any of those things, but what I'm doing is my main color is, it's dyed up by Creo, which is a local dyer to me, one of my favorites. This is the colorway Party Powder. It's basically a cream color with these speckles. I don't know if you can see that, but there's like blue speckles, pink speckles, there's some green ones in there, but it's really pretty subtle. And when it knits up as a neutral with just a little bit of interest. This is a fingering weight yarn. It's her baby feet, which is 75% superwash merino and 15% nylon, 10% tencel. It's 433 yards per 100 grams. So I got 2 skeins of this. This is what it looks like caked up. I love the difference. I will never get over it. I've been doing this for a couple of years and I still love the difference between the way a yarn looks in a hank as opposed to all caked up. And then again, when you knit it up, like, I love that. Okay, so this is it caked up. As you can see, it's pretty neutral, but there is a little bit going on. And I figured my daughter's in 1st grade, like she's not gonna be mad at some sprinkles, right? So then my contrast color is this skein of Noro. It's the Yukata base, which is, I don't have this in front of me, but I think it's 50% wool, 25% silk, and 25% polyamide. It's a sport weight and it's kind of a big long gradient. So there's pinks, purples, and then there's even some blue in there. And I thought instead of trying to swap out my individual colors for the dots, I could just use this big long gradient and that would do the same thing. Now, I'm gonna show you my swatch, because I did swatch, and then we can talk about how I feel about it. Okay, this is my swatch. I love the way it looks. And I got gauge, even row gauge, on the first go, which is like, that's never happened in my life. Okay, so here's my concern, and I guess, like, what's the point in talking about it? Because I'm not gonna do anything differently, but here's what I'm low grade worried about before we even get started. This is a gradient, right? So on my swatch, you could see that the dots go from being like red to a medium pink to a lighter pink. And this is a tiny little swatch. I did swatch in the round because I'm a good knitter. Mostly I just don't want to do an all over pullover sweater color work and then realize that no one can wear it. Like, that would be tragic. So I did swatch in the round, but the color changes pretty rapidly. So if I'm knitting all the way around a pullover, those dots, the rows of the dots are gonna go all the way around. So the gradient is gonna gradiate pretty significantly by the time you get down to the 2nd and the 3rd and the 4th row of the dot. So for instance, this whole dot is red, but in a pullover, like the top row would be red, but then by the time you get all the way back around to the 2nd row, it might be that lighter pink, or it might even be super light pink. So I'm not sure how much of a gradient change is gonna occur in each individual dot. I don't know, it might look weird. I mean, I guess it doesn't bother me enough to do anything differently. So we're just gonna see how it goes. But that is in the back of my mind that it might look a little weird. But I mean, what are you gonna do? We're gonna try it. It is super soft because it's a combination of this super wash merino and, again, fuzzy mohair. I cannot get enough of the fuzz. And my daughter actually really likes, she doesn't wear a lot of pullovers, but she does have one, and it's store-bought. It's like an alpaca. It's made out of alpaca. I mean, I don't think it's 100% alpaca because we got it from Target. And I don't think Target stocks 100% alpaca. I mean, I think it might have been like 20 bucks. But it is super soft, whatever's in there. So I showed her the swatch. I was like, how do you feel about a sweater that looks like this? And I showed her the picture and she was like, oh, it's so nice. So, you know, it's looking good so far. I like the way that the main color does read as a neutral, but you can see those little pops of color. And some of the speckles are not like within the color palette of the gradient, the Noro. Like there's some orange in here, which originally I was like, oh no, that might look bad. But when I knit it up, like, I'm not mad at it. It looks good. And when you're in first grade, more is more. Like truly, if a little bit of rainbow is good, a lot of rainbow is better. So I'm thinking, yes, let's do it. Let's do gradient and speckles. So that's I'm hoping to cast this on as soon as I can find the appropriate size cable. My knitting supplies are a hot mess. I have a couple of cubbies in this room that are just like stuffed with yarn and random notions, and my corner of the room has just exploded in a way that is borderline embarrassing. So I'm gonna try to clean that up, and maybe I'll do a video on it, because apparently the only way I can motivate myself to do anything these days is to video of it. I don't know what that says about me personally, but I'm gonna try to get that in order, because I truly cannot cast this project on it until I find some of my larger cables. I don't know. Okay, so that is the dot sweater. And what else have I got going on? Oh, okay, I do have one more project that I'm hoping to work on that I just got the yarn for today. So I stopped in Joann's because my dog ate the needle cord that I was using for this project. So I had like a fixed circular 16-inch needle, a US 10 needle that I was using for this random house sock. And I know better. This is totally my fault, because this is not my first rodeo. I know how my puppy is, but last night I was doing my project in bed and I fully blame Benadryl because I was a little bit stuffy, and I took some Benadryl, and you know, Benadryl like in those little plastic cups is just like, for me, just totally knocks me out. So I took my Benadryl, I was doing my house sock, and then I just like set my project down on the ground next to my bed and apparently passed out in a Benadryl induced coma. But I forgot to put my project in a project bag. And so when I woke up in the morning, my adorable looking puppy had eaten or chewed up pretty badly the cord of my 10-inch or my 16-inch US 10 circular needle. It's not his fault. It's not the dog's fault. It is the owner's fault. Correct. I know this. So I stopped by Joann's to get another 16-inch circular needle. This is actually a US 9, because the needle I had been using was a metal needle. It was a 10, but when I knit with wooden needles, I'm sort of looser, so I went down a size to try to compensate. I don't know, you guys. My second sock might be a lot smaller or larger based on the fact that I'm changing needles halfway through, which is like a big no-no, but given that they're already so weirdly shaped and they're house socks, I figured like whatever. Anyway, I was in Joann's and I bought this needle, and of course I happened to see this, which is, I'm never in Joann's, so you think I would know, but I don't. Okay, this is called KC Knit and Crochet Essential 100% cotton. It is, I don't even know what weight this is, sport weight maybe? It's 180 yards per 100 grams. Sorry, I'm like reading this label for the first time. 180 yards per 100 grams. I'll have to look up what that is. You know, on the Joann stuff, it doesn't tell you. It's a number 3. What's that? DK? It might be a DK. Anyway, my plan was, they're so cheap. They were like $4. So I bought these skeins because I was gonna knit a dish towel. Purl Soho has a pattern called Farmhouse. Hang on, I wrote it down. Farmhouse. Oh, that's right. The Farmhouse dish towels by Purl Soho. I'll put in a picture here. They look so charming on the pattern page. It's free, the pattern. So I've never knit a dish towel. I've actually never knit with cotton. I did knit with a cotton blend. I made the Anchor Summer Tea by PetiteKnit, which I remember being a real pain in the neck to knit because the yarn like had no give to it and it was really kind of hard on my hands. But this does not feel hard on my hands. It feels nice and soft. And I figured like, yeah, this will be my main color and then I'll have a pink stripey to go along with it. And if I hate it, like whatever. It's a dish towel. So maybe I'll cast that on, theoretically. Okay. I think that's all the knitting I've got. Let me look at my notes so I don't forget. I've got the hat, the vest, the sweater, my daughter's sweater, dish towel, slippers. Yeah, that's it. That's all. That's all I got. Okay, so that's where we are. You guys, I hope you're doing well. February is my least favorite month. It's kind of like you're over the holidays and winter is still eternal. This hasn't even been a bad winter and I'm still just like, oh. We have had a decent amount of false spring here in Chicago where we've had some 50-degree days, which is truly unheard of in February. But today is super dark and gloomy and freezing rain, which is my least favorite type of weather. So I'm trying to be upbeat about it and, you know, like play nice music and do fun projects. My girls got this kit for Christmas where you make your own bath bombs and it is such a mess, but kind of fun. So we've been doing that. And other than that, like we're just hanging in there and hoping for spring. And thanks so much for spending time with me. We're getting pretty close to 3,000 subscribers, so I'll have to keep in the back of my mind what we can do to celebrate that and maybe have some kind of giveaway or something. So if you have ideas or you know, anything that you want to see here, I'd love to hear about it. Take care and happy knitting. And tuck in all the ends. They're gonna know. How would they know?